Two men on their knees, both shaking. The kind of men who do not shake for anyone. They are shaking now. Nare stands in front of them. She does not raise her voice. She does not need to. The room is so quiet. You can hear the fear coming off both of them, like heat. She looks at the first one, then the second, then back to the first. You told me everything
went smoothly.
Nobody answers immediately. That silence is its own kind of confession. Who took him out of that van? The first man speaks. His voice is not steady, but he gets the words out. A woman, Ghanaian, military trained. She came from nowhere, broke the glass with her bare hands, grabbed the boy, was gone before anyone in that van could even process what had just happened. Nare says nothing. She stands there and lets the information settle inside her the way cold water settles. Slow, deep, everywhere at once. Then the smile comes. It starts at one corner of her mouth and moves across her face like something that has no warmth behind it at all. Like the idea of a smile rather than the real thing. Find her. That is all she says. 2 words, but both men on their knees understand exactly what those 2 words mean. This is not a request. This is not frustration talking. This is Nare making a decision. And when Nare makes a decision, people feel it for a long time afterward. Now, to understand why that moment matters. To understand why a woman as calculated as Nare was standing over 2 shaking men over a child she had not held in 4 years. You need to go back. 4 years ago. Nare was 23 when she met Lim Hyun-soo. She was already sharp at 23, in the way some people are born sharp and just keep getting sharper as the world gives them reasons to. She walked into rooms and immediately understood them. Who had power? Who wanted it? Who was performing? She could read the architecture of any space in under a minute and know exactly where she fit inside it. Hyun-soo was the same. That was the thing about them from the beginning. They recognized each other the way mirrors recognize each other. Instant, precise, no confusion. It was never soft between them. It was never the kind of love that sits in gentle places. It was real in the way fire is real, undeniable, consuming. The kind of real that 2 people who have never allowed themselves anything genuine can only find in each other. And then she became pregnant. Mio arrived at 4:47 in the morning on a Tuesday in March. Nare held him for exactly 3 minutes before the nurse took him for checks. 3 minutes. She has counted them many times since. In quiet rooms, in the back of cars. In the 8 months she spent away from Busan, trying to rebuild something inside herself that she did not have a name for yet. Because here is what Nare will never say out loud to anyone. In those 3 minutes, she was terrified. Not of the baby, of herself, of whether someone who had been built entirely for strategy and survival and reading rooms had anything left inside her that could do what that word, mother, actually required. Not the performing of it, the actual thing. She told herself the fear would pass. She told herself she just needed time. Time was the one thing Hyun-soo had already decided she did not have. What Lim Hyun-soo did next is the kind of thing that starts quietly and ends everything. He did not come to her and say it was over. He did not give her a conversation. He did not give her a reason. He chose a gala. Busan's most powerful people gathered in one room. He arrived with another woman on his arm. And when Nare crossed the room toward him, he looked through her. Not at her. Through her. Like she was a stranger. Like she was furniture that happened to be standing in his line of sight. like 4 years and a child, and every real thing they had ever shared between them had simply never existed. In front of everyone, it did not say she was dangerous. It did not say she was difficult. It said something far worse. It said this woman is nothing. She never had any standing here. None of it was real. He thought humiliation would break her quietly. He thought she would absorb it and disappear. He was wrong about almost everything in his life, but he was most wrong about this. She did not break quietly. She broke completely, all the way down, and quietly, where nobody could see it. And then she rebuilt. But what rebuilt was not the same thing that had broken. Something had shifted in the center of her. Something that had once been capable of softness had oriented itself permanently toward a single fixed point. Her social standing in Busan evaporated overnight. Every connection she had built vanished the moment Hyun-soo looked through her at that gala. She left Busan for 8 months, went somewhere nobody knew her name, and when she came back, she was not harder. Hard is a surface thing. She was more precise, more patient, more dangerous in the specific way that patient people are dangerous. She watched from a distance as Hyun-soo raised Mio without her, and the kidnapping. This is the part that will sit in your chest once you fully understand it. The kidnapping was never about Mio. She did not take her son because she wanted him back. She took him because he was the only thing in this world that could make Lim Hyun-soo feel exactly what she felt in that gala room. Helpless, powerless, completely destroyed. She used her own child as the instrument of her revenge. And it would have worked. Until a Ghanaian woman on a morning jog looked through a van window and saw a small boy who needed help. This story is just getting started. If you want to see where this goes, and trust me, you do, make sure you subscribed and hit that notification bell right now, because what happens next changes everything. Elizabeth Mensah was not supposed to stay in Busan. She was supposed to be there for 3 months. A private security contract. Straightforward. Clean. The kind of work she had done in 4 different countries without once looking back over her shoulder when she left. She had looked back this time. Not because of Hyun-soo. Not at first. Because of a 4-year-old boy who had looked up at her through van glass with the kind of eyes that do not ask for help because they have already decided you are it. She had not planned to break that glass. Her body made the decision before her mind caught up. Military training does that. It removes the gap between seeing danger and responding to it. She had the boy out of the van and 30 meters away before the men inside it had even fully registered what was happening. She did not know whose child he was that morning. She did not know what world she had just walked into. She knew now. 2 days after the kidnapping, Naray had her people, working. By the end of that week, she had everything. Elizabeth's name, her background, her service record, every posting, every commendation, every country she had ever worked in. And the last detail, the one that changed the temperature of everything. She was living inside the mansion. Naray sat with the file in front of her for a long moment, not reading it anymore, just looking at it. Something moving behind her eyes that was not grief and was not anger, but was something that lived between both of them. So, you replaced me. She said it quietly. To nobody in the room. To the file. To the particular silence that comes when a woman understands that someone else has been given the life she was removed from. That was the moment this stopped being about revenge against Hyun-soo. It became personal in a different way. Meanwhile, Elizabeth had already noticed the car. She had been off duty. No uniform. moving through Busan the way she moved through every city she had ever lived in, quietly, observantly, taking up exactly as much space as she needed and not 1 centimeter more. On her way back, something registered before she could name it. A car moving too slowly on a street where slow movement had no reason to exist. Her eyes caught the plates without her face changing at all. She kept walking. Same pace, same direction, same expression. But she had filed it. That was the thing about Elizabeth that people consistently underestimated. She never reacted where you could see it. Every response she had was internal first, processed, assessed, categorized. By the time anything showed on her face, a decision had already been made 3 steps behind her eyes. She knew she was being watched. She did not know yet by whom, but she knew the energy of surveillance. She had conducted enough of it herself to recognize it from the receiving end. She said nothing to Hyun-soo that evening. She was not ready to bring him a problem without also bringing him an assessment of it. What she did instead was change her routes, vary her timings, start noting vehicles, faces, anything that appeared more than once. She moved through Busan like a woman who was completely unbothered and was simultaneously building a map of everything that was wrong. 3 days later, the coffee shop. She had chosen it deliberately. Corner table, clear sight lines to both exits, her back to the wall. Off-duty, but never truly off. Naray walked in, and Elizabeth knew before she sat down. Not who she was, but what she was. The way she moved through the space. The way her eyes did one clean sweep of the room before settling on Elizabeth, with the particular focus of someone who has been thinking about this moment for longer than the other person realizes. She sat down across from her uninvited. Elizabeth did not move, did not shift, just looked at her. Naray smiled. That smile again, the one with no warmth in any corner of it. You are living in Lim Hyun-soo's house. Not a question, a placement. She was locating Elizabeth inside a map she had already drawn. Elizabeth said nothing, held her cup, watched her. I am the mother of his child. The coffee shop moved around them, people ordering, cups touching saucers, a child laughing 2 tables away, none of it touching this table at all. Naray leaned forward, her voice dropped. Leave that house. Take nothing with you. Just leave. She held Elizabeth's eyes for one long moment. Then she stood. Straightened her coat with the kind of deliberateness that was itself a message. Looked down at Elizabeth one final time. And Elizabeth looked back up at her. Still. Completely unmoved. The way a mountain is unmoved when someone stands in front of it and tells it to shift. Naray walked out. Elizabeth sat there after she left. Cup in both hands. Eyes on the door. Not afraid, not rattled, running calculations. She now knew exactly who that woman was. She had connected the file Hyun-soo's people kept locked away to the woman who had just sat across from her and delivered a warning like she was offering a gift. And Naray had learned something she had not expected to learn. Elizabeth Mensah had not flinched once. Not when she sat down uninvited. Not at the mention of Hyun-soo. Not at the warning. Not at the look. Not once. Naray had delivered that warning to women before. They all responded. Fear, anger, tears. Defiance that was really just dressed up fear. Something always moved in them. Nothing moved in Elizabeth. That was what made everything that came next, not a choice, but an inevitability. Because Naray could not leave something unmoved. It was not in her nature. And Elizabeth could not be moved by a threat she had already assessed and filed and was 3 steps ahead of. 2 women, 1 house, 1 man. one child caught in the middle, and something worse than a threat now sitting between all of it. The envelope arrived on a Thursday morning. Nere's man came to the mansion gate alone. No vehicle, no uniform, just a man in a plain jacket carrying a single envelope like he was delivering something ordinary. Hyunsu's guards stopped him before he reached the intercom, took the envelope, took his details, watched him walk away. Elizabeth was not home that morning. Hyunsu opened it alone in his study, slid the photograph out, looked at it once. Elizabeth, taken from a distance, somewhere in Busan, off duty. The angle was close enough to confirm that whoever took it had been within meters of her without her knowing. Or so they thought. A red line crossed through her face. He looked at it once, set it down on the desk, then picked it up again. His jaw tightened for exactly 1 second. 1. Then he set it down flat. Final. The way he set down documents he had already decided on. He didn't call anyone immediately. He sat with it. Let it tell him everything it was trying to say. Narai had not sent this because she expected him to be afraid. She sent it because she wanted him to know that she was already close, already watching, already inside the perimeter of everything he was trying to protect. It was not a threat. It was a demonstration. He understood the language because he had spoken it himself before, to other people, in other rooms, a long time ago. That evening, Elizabeth came home. He greeted her at the door the way he always did. Steady, normal. Watched her move through the mansion with Mio the way she always did. Her hand finding the back of Mio's head without thinking about it. Mio leaning into it without looking up from whatever he was telling her about his day. Hyunsu said nothing about the envelope, but at the back of his mind, something was already moving. Quiet, deliberate. He was not a man who reacted. He was a man who arranged, and he had already started arranging. 3 days later, Nare made her move on the road. Elizabeth was in her uniform driving back to the mansion. The main road felt normal. 2 black SUVs behind her. She clocked them at the first turn. Kept her speed. Kept her face neutral. Ran the calculation. Then the quiet road. The first SUV accelerated hard. Shot past her and swung across her front with a screech of rubber. Braked. The second one sealed her from behind at the same moment. Doors opening on both sides simultaneously like it had been rehearsed many times before this morning. Because it had. Nare stepped out of the first SUV. She was not in a hurry. She walked toward Elizabeth's car the way a person walks toward something they already own. She looked at Elizabeth through the windscreen the way a woman looks at someone she has been thinking about for weeks, with nothing but cold, focused intention. That is Elizabeth. Get her now. 2 guards moved toward the car from opposite sides. Elizabeth's door opened. She stepped out. Uniform neat. Face giving nothing at all. The first guard reached for her arm. She dropped him before his hand finished the movement. It was not dramatic. It was not performed. It was the specific economy of someone who has trained so long that the body simply responds without consulting the mind. Belt off her waist in one motion, across the second guard's face before he could adjust. Both of them on the ground inside 4 seconds. But the first one caught her on the way down. A rough grab that twisted wrong. Her sleeve tore at the shoulder. Her wrist took the impact against the doorframe. She felt it move in a way it should not move, and registered it and kept going. Back in the car, engine already running. Turn, gone. Nare stood on that quiet road. 2 guards face down on the asphalt, the sound of Elizabeth's engine already fading. She stood there for a long moment in the particular silence of a plan that has just met something it was not built for. Not fear on her face, not shock. something quieter than both. The beginning of a recalculation. That night, Elizabeth walked through the mansion door. Torn sleeve, wrist held carefully at her side. Composed in the specific way that soldiers are composed when they are hurt, and do not want the hurt to be the first thing anyone sees. Hyunsu saw it immediately. Not just the sleeve. Her eyes. The way she was holding her body slightly differently on the left side. Something had happened, and it had happened close. He closed the door, sent everyone else out of the room. She told him everything, the SUVs, the quiet road, the woman who stepped out and looked at her like the outcome had already been written. The guards on the ground. The wrist. He listened without interrupting once. His face gave nothing while she spoke. When she finished, he picked up his phone, made one call, said 3 words, set the phone down. The name came back in minutes. He read it once. Nothing moved in his face. Read it again. Still nothing. Then quietly, just the name leaving his mouth like something that had weight attached to it. Nare. The room changed when he said it. Not the walls, or the light, or the furniture. The air. The way the air sat between them changed completely. Elizabeth watched his face in the silence that followed and understood 3 things at once, without him saying a single word more. This woman was not a stranger to him. Whatever this was, it did not begin with the kidnapping. And whatever had happened between these 2 people, it was not finished. Not even close. He looked up at her. Steady. Controlled. But something had arrived behind his eyes that had not been there a moment ago. Something old. Something he had believed he had already dealt with. I will handle this. Not reassurance, not performance. A decision made by a man who had just understood exactly what he was dealing with and had already accepted the weight of it. Elizabeth looked at him. Said nothing. But she had heard the name the same way he had said it. And she understood that whatever handle this meant, it was going to cost him something. She just did not know yet how much. If this story is hitting you different, take 3 seconds of your time and tell me which part of the world are you watching from. Also, drop a comment and tell me what you think Nare does next. Morning came into the kitchen differently the next day. Not softer, just quieter. The kind of quiet that sits in a house after something heavy has passed through it and not quite left yet. Mio was already at the table when they came down. Tea in front of him, both hands around the cup the way he had watched Elizabeth hold hers. He did not look up immediately, just sat there in the particular stillness of a child who is paying attention to more than he is showing. Elizabeth sat down. Hyunsu sat across from her. Nobody spoke first. The morning moved around them. Light coming through the kitchen window. The small sounds of a house waking up. Then Mio looked up, directly at Elizabeth's face. Not at her wrist, not at her sleeve. At her face. That 4-year-old evaluation that had no politeness in it and no filter. Just pure, unblinking assessment. He looked at her for a long moment, then in Busan dialect, completely matter-of-fact, like he was reporting something he had already confirmed. "걱정하지 마. 아빠가 다 할 거야." Don't worry, Dad will handle it. The table went completely quiet. Neither of them had told him anything. Not a word, not a hint. Children that age were not supposed to carry rooms the way Mio carried them. Were not supposed to read silences that adults had carefully constructed. Were not supposed to deliver the exact sentence that 2 people had been circling around all night without finding. Elizabeth picked up her cup. Both hands, calm and steady. 응, 믿어요. Yeah, I trust him. She did not look at Hyunsu when she said it. kept her eyes on her cup. But the words sat in the room, and they were not small words. Trust from Elizabeth Mensah was not a decoration. It was a thing she gave carefully and meant completely. Hyunsu heard every syllable. Mio went back to his tea, satisfied, the way he always looked when he had resolved something that the adults around him were taking too long to get to. The days that followed were not loud. They were not dramatic. But something had shifted in the mansion, and everyone inside it could feel it, even when nobody was naming it. It lived in the hallway on Tuesday evening. The narrow stretch outside Mio's room, low light, both of them reaching for the glass of water on the small table at the same moment. His hand landing over hers. Neither of them moving. The glass between them, and neither one reaching for it anymore. She stepped back first, walked to her room, closed the door, stood with her back against it, and exhaled. Long and quiet and entirely private. The kind of exhale that carries more than air. It lived in the kitchen at midnight 2 nights later. She could not sleep. He was already there when she came downstairs. 2 cups already on the counter. 1 tea, 1 coffee. Like he had known, like he had not. She sat down. He read. The mansion silent around them. At some point he looked up and found her already looking. Neither of them looked away. Then Mio's small voice came drifting down from upstairs, asking for water. And the moment broke before either of them had to decide what to do with what was sitting between them. It lived in the garden the following morning. She was running drills before the sun was fully up. Alone. Or so she thought. She turned and found him in the doorway, coffee in hand, watching. He had been there long enough that the coffee was half gone. How long have you been standing there? He took a slow sip. Long enough. Something moved at the corner of her mouth that was not quite a smile, but was in the same neighborhood. She walked past him back inside. He turned and watched her go. Stood in the empty garden after she disappeared. This was the first time in years he was genuinely afraid of getting something wrong. Not losing a deal. Not miscalculating a move. Genuinely afraid of damaging something real by reaching for it the wrong way. And it lived in the living room that evening. She was reading, he was at his desk. 40 minutes passed, without one word between them. Not uncomfortable silence. The other kind. The kind that has settled between 2 people who have quietly gotten used to each other without planning to. Then without looking up from his desk. Are you happy here? She looked up from her book, took a breath, looked at him. Don't ask me questions you already know the answer to, Mr. Lim. She went back to her book. Just slightly. Just enough. The corner of her mouth. He looked back at his documents. Something that had been trying to find words for weeks simply stopped trying. It did not need them anymore. Nari had been watching all of it. Not the private moments inside the mansion, but the pattern, the rhythms. When Elizabeth left, when she returned, when Hyunsu was with her and when he was not. She had been patient in the way that only people who are running on something deeper than anger can be patient. Grief disguised as strategy. Waiting for the one moment, the space between Elizabeth and Mio opened up just enough. It opened on a Wednesday morning. Elizabeth and Mio. A short walk. Just meters from the mansion gate. Mio holding 2 of her fingers the way he always did when they walked. Not her whole hand. Just 2 fingers. Like that was the exact amount of connection he needed to feel anchored. They appeared from 3 directions at once. Nare's men moved fast and without sound, surrounding them completely before Elizabeth had fully clocked the geometry of it. She read it in under 2 seconds. Too many. Too coordinated. No clean exit. Nare stepped forward. She looked down at Mio. Something crossed her face in that moment that was not cold. It was the first genuinely human thing she had shown since this all began. Something that looked briefly like pain before she locked it back behind her eyes. Then, deliberately, each word placed with care. Mio, ayoja neol yomaga ania. Ni 진짜 엄마 여기 있어. This woman is no your mother. Your real mother is right here. Mio looked at Nare, then at Elizabeth, then back at Nare. Something moved across his small face, not confusion, recognition, and then a decision made with the absolute certainty that only a 4-year-old who has already chosen can make. Ania, Ania, Ania. No, no, no. One guard grabbed Mio by the arm. 2 seized Elizabeth from behind. She fought immediately. Elbows, weight, everything she had. But the wrist was still wrong from the road, and there were too many of them, and Mio was screaming now, and she could not get to him. Then the sirens. Loud, close. Getting closer, faster than Nare had calculated. Her composure fractured for the first time. Just for a second. But it was visible. She turned. Snapped orders. Her men broke in 3 directions at once. Hyunsu's car came in from the north end of the street. Police cutting every remaining exit from the south. Nare turned one way, then the other. For the first time since this began, she had no move. 2 officers brought her down onto the pavement. She did not go quietly. She fought with everything she had, because Nare had never in her life accepted a loss without making it cost something. They got her down. And in that moment, hands pulled behind her back, face turned toward the street. She found Elizabeth across the distance between them, held her eyes. You think this is over? Then the door closed. The car pulled away. The street went quiet. Elizabeth stood there. Mio pressed hard against her side. Both of them watching the police car disappear around the corner. Her hand on the back of his head. His face turned into her uniform. The street completely still. But Nare's last words were still in the air, and Elizabeth Mensah had not become who she was by pretending things were finished when they were not. She held Mio tighter. Tell me, what do you think will happen next? Because what Hyunsu does on this street in the next 60 seconds, nobody saw it coming. Stay right there. Hyunsu reached them on foot. He had left the car the moment it stopped moving, crossed the street fast without running. The controlled urgency of a man who has learned that panic helps nobody and has trained himself out of it completely. But his eyes went to Mio first. They always went to Mio first. He crouched down, both hands on his son's face, checked his eyes, his arms, the back of his head. Mio let him, stood still for the inspection with the patience of a child who understood that this particular ritual was his father's way of saying, was afraid, and I need to confirm you are whole. Then Hyunsu stood. He looked at Elizabeth. She looked back at him, wrist held carefully at her side again, uniform dusty at the knee from where she had gone down fighting, standing straight anyway, because that was simply who she was. Straight was not performance for Elizabeth. It was just her natural resting position in the world. He exhaled. It was the longest exhale she had ever heard from him. The exhale of a man setting down something he had been carrying so long he had stopped noticing the weight of it until the moment it left his body. The street was quiet around them. Police finishing their work at both ends. A few residents at windows. The ordinary Busan morning continuing at a respectful distance from whatever this was. He did not reach for words immediately. That was the thing about this moment that made it different from every other moment between them. He was not arranging it. not building architecture around it, not deciding how it should look before he let it out. He just stood there on that street in the morning light and let it be unfinished for a moment. Let himself be a man who did not have the sentence yet. Then he did. I am sorry for what my world has cost you. From my heart. I am sorry for everything. Not a speech, not a performance. 6 words of genuine accounting from a man who had spent years making sure he never owed anyone anything and had just decided that this debt was the only one that actually mattered. His hand went into his jacket pocket. He brought out a ring, gold, clean, catching the Busan morning light in a way that felt almost unreasonable given everything that had just happened on this street 20 minutes ago. He held it out, not down on one knee, not staged, just held it out in his open hand the way you offer something to someone and leave the receiving entirely up to them. Will you marry me? I want you to be my son's mother. Please. He stopped, waited. No negotiation in his face, no calculation. Just a man standing in the open, with the answer mattering more than anything he had ever closed a deal on in his life. Elizabeth looked at the ring, and everything came at once the way it always does in the moments that count. It does not arrive in order. It does not wait for the right time. It just lands. 4 pregnancies. 4 times she had held something real and watched it leave before she could keep it. A Tuesday, she had signed paperwork and returned to work on Wednesday because grief does not pause the world, and she had learned early to move inside it rather than wait for it to stop. A doctor's voice delivering a verdict the way doctors do when they have given this particular verdict before and have run out of ways to soften it. A marriage that had loved her genuinely and still broken because 2 people carrying the same loss can sometimes make the weight double instead of half. The fear. The specific one she had never said out loud to anyone. That she would build something real, something with warmth and morning light and a small boy who held 2 of her fingers on walks, and then watch it disappear the way everything real had disappeared before it. Nari's voice still on the street. You think this is over? All of it arriving in the space between his question and her answer. She looked at Mio. Mio looked up at her face with that ancient, unblinking certainty. Read it the way he always did. Everything she was trying to hold steady, and everything underneath it that was not steady at all. Then in Busan dialect, urgent, completely unbothered by the size of the moment. Gyolon he, Yoma, Yoma, Yoma. Marry him, mum, mum, mum. Elizabeth looked at this boy, this child who had chosen her through Van Glass before she had chosen anything. Who had pushed his food away and waited at gates? Who had drawn 3 people holding hands in crayon and taken it to school like evidence of something he already knew to be true before the adults around him had caught up? She looked at Hyunsu. Steady. Unhurried. The way Elizabeth Mensah made every decision that mattered. Yes. He pulled her in right there on that street. No audience in mind. No performance. Just his arms around her and his mouth finding hers, and all of it completely and entirely his own. Real in the specific way that things are real when a person has stopped managing them. Mio threw both fists into the air like he had just won something enormous. Because he had. That night, the mansion was quiet. Elizabeth sat alone in her room. Ring on her finger. The Busan night coming through the window in the particular way it did at this hour. Soft. Dark. Still. She dialed. Her uncle answered on the 3rd ring. Colonel Joseph Mensah. The man who had taught her that discipline was not the absence of feeling, but the decision to feel it on your own terms. She told him everything. All of it. From the van to the street to the ring. His voice on the line was completely silent for a long moment. Then it came. Warm. The soldier entirely gone. Just a father who had watched his daughter carry more than any person should carry, and had never once stopped believing she deserved something good on the other side of it. "This is good, my daughter. I am very happy for you. He is a good man. I want the best for you always. Please take care of yourself." She held the phone long after the call ended, not ready to put it down, not ready to let the sound of his voice fully leave the room. Outside, the Busan night continued, unhurried, indifferent. The city moving the way cities move when enormous private things are happening inside them. Elizabeth Mensah sat in the middle of it. Ring catching the light. A boy asleep down the hall who had decided she was his mother before she had decided anything at all. A man in the next room who had stood on a street and handed her a question with his whole chest open. She had come to Busan running. Not from a place. From the particular exhaustion of a life that had taken more than it had given and left her wondering in quiet moments whether the ledger would ever balance. She was not running anymore. She was staying.
Before you go, think about where Elizabeth started. One bag, one city she did not know. Running shoes laced up every morning because that was all she had left. She was not looking for a family. She was not looking for anything. Then a boy pressed his hands against a van window, and everything changed. So tell me in the comments, what did Elizabeth teach you? Was it that love finds you when you stop looking? That you do not have to give birth to become a mother? That a 4-year-old with a crayon drawing can undo a woman who survived everything? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know your thoughts. If this story moved something in you, hit the like button right now. It helps more people find this story who need it tonight. And if you are not subscribed yet, do it now and turn on the bell, because we tell stories like this every week and you do not want to miss what is coming next. Thank you for staying all the way to the end.